Hi friends, I'm Liz.
I'm Robbie. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. We are in a slightly different setup. You may have noticed we have moved.
Just so
recently.
slightly, pretty epically different setup.
Yeah. So we are still trying to figure out what our setup is going to look like in our new space.
Probably not gonna do this.
Yeah, I know. Probably not. Probably not.
It's an experiment.
But we're doing our best.
Thanks for being here.
But we are doing a little bit of a different type of video today. We wanted to do a bit of a look forward. As the year is coming to an end, we wanted to talk about some of the books we are looking forward to reading next year. I think we're going to try and tackle. This will kind of be, I think, absolutely no organizational method at all.
Chaos.
Just kind of a chaos of, recommendations for ourselves, for what we want to read for the channel, for what we want the other person to read, kind of free form. But we're going to do 25 books or series for the year 2025. And so that is what we're going to go through, about 25 books or series that we're really interested in. Indeed. So without further ado, do you want to start or shall I?
Yeah, how should we do it?
I think we just go back and forth.
I have a few books that I'm intrigued for you, well, series that I'm intrigued for you to read.
Okay.
First, because this was my journey, I think I'll recommend, since you're just about finished with the Sarah J. Maas verse.
I am.
You'll be finished by the end of the year?
No,
or January?
I think January is the last one.
So I have to come up with something else for you to read.
Clearly.
Oh my gosh, what a champion. My recommendation would be the Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I believe that's how you say it.
Fun last name.
Very fun last name. I believe it's a pen name, or she has another pen name.
Cool.
She also writes like dirty, sexy books.
This is not that.
It is dirty, sexy, but it's romantic-y, so there's plot.
Okay.
I've never read her other
stuff. I
stuff.
can get behind that.
I know
sure.
she has another pen name, and I'm actually intrigued because I do very much enjoy her intimate scenes. I had just finished ACOTAR. I hadn't gotten into Throne of Glass yet. I believe I'd read the first Crescent City, and I was desperate for something similar. So I took to Goodreads and was like, what is similar to ACOTAR? Basically just looking at my recommendations page, and Blood and Ash came up, and I'm so glad because I absolutely loved it. And I'm very intrigued for you to read it because while it has very similar romantic vibes to the other things that I've had you read, it's definitely very different style. And I love this series, and I love these characters, and I'm very excited for you to get into it. Period.
Great. Awesome. Sounds fun.
Great.
Okay, so I'll do one that I want for you once you have finished Wheel of Time. And since I have kind of in retrospect, it was a bad idea to start with Wheel of Time. It's too long. It's just too much.
I
But
think it's an epic world, and I'm glad.
That aside, I think something completely different would be great. Okay. Something not by a dude. Something much more modern and urban. And so
we got the real book.
I actually have this. I was going to have her read Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I have this very beautiful edition from the Broken Binding. And this is just everything that the Wheel of Time isn't. It's like Asian Godfather kind of set in Japan.
Amazing.
It's really, really fascinating. It's
never read anything.
One of my favorite reads of last year, and I am really excited for first off for someone to read this beautiful edition that we have. I'm
very excited,
and also just for you to get to see something that's not a pillar of the fantasy genre, something that's just so different that see what other people are doing in the genre modern now, which I think is really exciting and will be very good. I hope.
Very excited. Yeah, no, I'm excited to read that pretty book. You're gonna have to give me notes on how to read it, because I think I'm a little more chaotic than you with my books and the way that I read them.
Don't fold the pages.
I'm not gonna
Use
fold
a bookmark
pages.
that has a bookmark.
Yeah.
That's
Sure.
pretty much it. You can take the dust jacket off.
Break the binding kind of girl, but I will
Please
not do that with
don't
your
do
books.
that.
I know. But I just would rather, because I'm not a big hardcover book fan, because I think they're hard to read. So I'm like, I want to make it as pliable. I'm not going to do that to your fancy books. Okay, I honestly think there's so much in the Blood and Ash verse that.
Oh, we're doing another Blood and Ash book?
No. Well, I'm saying of like that's the series I was recommending.
Yeah, sure.
But I was going to then also kind of give another series. I don't know if we'll get into it in 2025 because the Blood and Ash verse is a lot, and there is a prequel series as well in that. Do you think that counts as separate?
The prequel series?
Mm-hmm. Or it's a part of the.
I would count it as the same, but we can talk about it.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Because of that, there's now.
I'm mostly going
9
by
books?
I'm only doing one thing per author.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I think.
Cool. So most likely that will be most of next year if we do that entire thing. But if it is not.
Is that many books?
There's a lot.
Wow.
One of the most recent books is coming out. I'm actually a little bit behind in this series, so I will be
catching
reading
up with
these
me.
books.
Great, fantastic.
If for some reason you blow through them. They're your favorite books ever. My
Probably.
next suggestion will be a Nora Roberts book or series, just because it is something that very much got me into. It was kind of it was definitely the door open into the romantasy realm. And Nora Roberts is a very famous romance novelist. I think she's written hundreds of novels at this point. Funnily enough, I don't know if it's funnily enough, writes a mean fantasy book, I think. At least, again, this was my like gateway into romantasy. And my favorite trilogy by her, she does a ton of trilogies, which I love because I love at least 3 books, thrilling. Not too many, not too little. You get to stay with these people for a while. My favorite is the Chronicles of the One trilogy that I actually just got those books for. Cool. I started it during the pandemic, and I didn't know that it was about a magical pandemic. So very interesting. It'll be really interesting to see you read that style of book because it's definitely very different, but something that I hold near and dear to my heart. Definitely a little bit more romancy.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing I have for you is a standalone, because I don't know that you've read any standalones that I've ever... You've definitely never read any standalones that I've given you. But I don't know how many standalones you normally read. They're kind of somewhat rare. Fantasy, but there is a book called Blood Over Brighthaven that came out, I believe, last year, maybe this past year, by M.L. Wong. And it is awesome. And she is kind of known for writing... She has another one called The Sword of Kaigan. That's another very good standalone series. But this one is... again, very modern, kind of an urban fantasy thing. The whole thing is about a mystery of kind of how magic works in this world. It is a city that is surrounded kind of by like a wasteland, and there's essentially like a bubble of where they are able to safely stay. Cool. And there's a lot of power dynamics and sexism, and I just think you'll really, really like it.
I'll get really annoyed by it.
Yes, exactly. Well, exactly. It's a woman writing terrible men, and it's great. I really enjoyed it. I couldn't put it down. It's a very quick read.
Great.
So I think that would be a really fun one for you to go into.
I have one more.
Yeah.
And it's really more of a general. It's not like a specific suggestion, but I do just want to give you a full-on cheesy romance novel. Because you've gotten the ones that are thus far, there's some oomph to them, and there's... I'll give you this. Most of them are 200 to 300 pages, so you'll probably read it in like a day. Yeah. At least the ones that I will think of recommending. So if you have a recommendation for like a one-off romance novel, maybe I'll give you an Emma Henry. How about that? Because I love
that means nothing to me, but okay.
Yeah, they will know.
Great.
They will know. If you know, you know. Just because I think it would be another insight into my brain and what I enjoy. And I think an Emma Henry one, you would actually enjoy her style of writing. Cool. So that's probably where we go. If not, or maybe we give them just a cheesy hockey romance. Oof, but that's on the list somewhere.
Well, that's something to look forward to, I suppose.
A real quick read. That's all I got for you.
Great. Do you have anything for both of us? Okay, so I have two, new section of the video.
New section.
So I have two that I would like us to try and read together this next year. One of them is kind of cheating, but I'm going to say it anyway. I assume we're going to get back into the Riordanverse at some point over the next coming year. I believe the next one is the Kane Chronicles, which is kind of ancient Egypt, which I thought would make you excited to get into. So I do believe that's the next one in the chronology. So I assume we'll get to that at some point this year. Not sure when, probably not right away, but I think we will bounce back into that at some point. The other one that I would like to read this year, because I haven't read it in a very long time, and I believe Liz has never read it, is Eragon by Christopher Paolini.
I've never read it.
And it's just been a really long time. I remember these books. I loved the books growing up. And I remember them getting a very bad rap for being derivative and blah, 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 which could be said about basically any modern fantasy. So let's calm down a bit. But maybe my opinion on that will change if I reread it. I do not know. But I loved it when I was younger. And it also very much feels like Paolini, I don't know how to say his last name, is gearing up to like reboot. Murtagh came out, I think last year, maybe this year. Not necessarily a direct sequel, but a continuation. And there's a lot of stuff happening. Like there's like special editions happening. There's the illustrated edition. There's the push, or maybe it's already been confirmed. There's going to be a TV series. It feels like we're going to get more in Alagacia. In this world. And so I would love to go back into it. And Dragon Fantasy is kind of coming back into vogue.
Love a dragon.
There's multiple Dragon Fantasy series that I keep meaning to start, but I'm like, they're not done yet. And so I kind of want to wait. But I would love to get back into Eragon just to see what it's like reading it again with so much more perspective on the genre. But I really loved it as a kid. If you don't know what Eragon's about, it's a young adult Dragon Rider series. That's really all you need to know.
To say more.
There's really
perfect.
nothing else to say.
You have me at that.
I
remember grabbing it much. I may have at least started or read it when I was younger, and I just don't remember because it's very much something that I would have gravitated towards as a young reader.
It's chunky books. They're big, but it's a quartet, and I'm interested to and then also get to eventually, I hope, read Murtagh at the end of it, which I have not read, and I have heard mixed things about, but still, I would be very excited to go back into that series.
Yeah.
But I think now we can start talking about stuff just for ourselves.
Yeah, individual.
So, did you?
Great. Well, I guess since we have this one's for me, but I guess since we have read the other two together, maybe this will be a you one as well. This is Onyx Storm.
Oh, we're gonna do that together. I'm gonna read it.
In the Fourth Wing series. What is that called? No, it's
the Empyrean.
Empyrean.
No
thank
one knows
you.
that's what it's called.
I know they don't. I never really know.
Though.
I'm so bad at knowing series names because they're often like da 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 da.
Yeah.
And that part is in smaller text and I don't pay attention. I also read on my Kindle, so I very rarely pay attention to the titles of the books that I'm reading either, which is terrible. But yeah, that's coming out next January, February?
I think so.
Sometime
very
early
soon.
in the year.
Very
I'm very
soon.
intrigued. I would personally like to reread the first two if I can make time because I was very tainted by how I felt about the second one.
Which is why I'm not going to be rereading them.
Well, but I kind of want to read them in a row because I did not reread the first one when you read the first one. And I kind of want to read them together to see if I have different feelings about it going into the second one. Intrigued. I like this world. I like the characters. So I'm intrigued to read that next year.
Cool. I have a whole ass list and I literally didn't pull it up. I'll start with the one I remember. So one of the ones I'm most excited to read this year has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I kept putting it off, and I've just finally decided that I just need to prioritize it as the next series I'm going to read. I have a few series I'm in the middle of right now. I need to finish Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, and I need to finish Powder Mage Trilogy and stuff like that. But once I've done all that, this is going to be probably the first thing I read next year, hopefully pretty early in the year, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This is a historical fantasy. I think it's based off of... Well, I don't know that it's actually like that heavily based off of Chinese history, but I believe it is at least inspired by. I don't know too much about it. I know that it is grimdark. I know that it was very popular when it first came out, and I heard mixed things about like the final book, and also that it's a main character that you are not supposed to like. I don't think.
Oh, interesting.
Interesting, but I've heard it's very dark, and I haven't read anything really dark much this year, to be honest. It's been very lighter stuff a lot of the time, or at least not grimdark. So it's been a while, and I've been meaning to read this for literally years now, so I think it's just time to pull the trigger. So that's kind of the top of my priority list this year.
Love it. Okay, the next one for me, I believe is a series or the start of a series. I've had, I think, 3 people randomly text me and say, have you read this book yet? You have to read it. One of which is one of my best friends who I 100% have the same taste as, so I'm sure I'm gonna like it, is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I think it's one of those that is, I've seen it a lot on my social media, so I think it's one that is quickly growing and becoming very popular. So that's on my TBR. I don't know anything about it, except for that people love the main male character. So
Great.
I'm in.
Love it. So for next one for me, continuing the Grimdark Fest, is I actually have this. I just got this. Yeah, The Black Company by Glenn Cook. I don't know if focus. I just managed to pick up this on sale the other day at our bookstore, which is great. This is kind of like one of the grandfathers of Grimdark. Glenn Cook's one of the first Grimdark authors, from what I understand. And this is also one of the first, or maybe the first, example of like boots on the ground military fantasy, like unit military fantasy, which is something I've been missing since I haven't read anything from Malazan, which is heavily inspired by this. And haven't read anything in that series this whole year. So I'm kind of excited to get back into that. I've heard mixed things. I've heard this is very dark, and I'm not necessarily a huge grimdark fan. I sometimes fear it turns very much into just like doing terrible things, specifically like horrific depictions of violence or sexual assault just to do them, which I think is somewhat too common in this genre. But I am really excited to give it a chance because I spent this whole year reading a lot of very modern fantasy, with the exception of maybe like Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And so I'm hoping this coming year to read a few more classics, kind of read some more influential series, or even just like older series in general. So this will be one of those. So I will hopefully get to this sometime next year.
Okay, this one is, I don't know when it's coming out. I have no idea when it's coming out. It was originally slated to come out this past July, 2024. Not happened. But I feel like it's gotta be happening soon. And it's book 4 in the Kindred's Curse saga. I believe I've talked about it on this channel. This series took my breath away. I couldn't think about anything else when I was reading the first 3 books. I think I read them within a matter of a week or 2 weeks, because even though they're pretty thick and chunky books, love the world. They moved so fast. Very much about a powerful young female coming into her power in a society that is not super dreamy. One of the slowest slow burns I've ever read, and I think it's very worth it. And I'm really, really intrigued to see what happens in this world next. This is another one that I think really blew up on social media in the past 6 months or so, and I'm really glad that I snagged onto it, because it's so good, and I can't wait for the next one. No idea when it's coming out. If you know somehow secretly, tell me, because I would like to know, and I put it on my calendar. So this is a hopeful in my 2025 reading saga.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Next one for me, complete polar opposite of what I was just talking about. I'd love to finally read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Yes. I read the prequel because Liz got it for me for Christmas, I think, last year?
Yeah, it was
last year. And I meant to read Legends and Lattes sometime this year and just didn't get to it, so I want to kind of prioritize it a little bit more next year. I haven't read too much cozy fantasy since then, except for, forays into ACOTAR, because it kind of strays into that sometimes. Yeah. And so I would love to do that just to, lighten the load, especially with some of the grimmer series that I'm planning to read this year. I think it'll be a really good fit.
For sure.
Legends and Lattes, if you don't know, is a cozy fantasy. Not a standalone anymore, but it's a book about an orc who I think works or runs a coffee shop. That's really all I really know.
Can't get
but I'm very excited about it. So hopefully I will be able to get to that not too late into the year.
Okay, my next one is sort of an addendum to what I gave you, which is to continue the Blood and Ash series and the prequel series. I forget the name of the prequel series, but Blood and Ash verse in general. I'm a couple books behind, maybe 2 or 3, which is kind of nice. And I know that the sixth book, in the series is coming out in 2025. So thrilled about that. Very excited. Again, obsessed with this world, hence why I'm having you read it. I think the books are really interesting. They're really, really long. But I love these characters. It's very similar. I very much have a type. And I think we all kind of have a type, because these are the kind of romantasy books that have come into popularity, where you have a young woman who comes into power in a society that really needs someone who thinks like her. And there's a lot of love, sexy romance. It's great. A lot of different types of beings, a lot of gods. And the prequel series touches on the gods of the past as well, which is really, really cool. And this is actually one who I love the Blood and Ash series, but when I picked up the prequel series, I actually liked it even more. I think it's maybe the characters or the writing style that, it's been later on in her writing journey that I loved. So that I have said this for, I think, the past year, that I want to get back into this series, but I've gotten a little distracted. And I do have a hard time getting back into a series like this, because I don't ever want to leave. So when I'm like, I'm going to get back into it, it's like I'm making a commitment. So this year, I really want to get back into it and finish up where we're at.
Cool. Another one for me is I would love to return to the realm of the Elderlings this year. I think I've kind of just decided I'm going to read one series in the realm of the Elderlings a year until I've finished it. And last year I read Live Ship Traders, so that means this coming year it is time for Tawny Man. And I haven't really heard too much about this one. I had heard that, the first Assassin's Apprentice and the Farseer trilogy I've heard is fantastic, and it is, and I've heard that the Live Ship Traders is potentially even better, and it was. They're both phenomenal. I haven't really heard too much about Tawny Man, and so I'm really excited to get back into it with Fitz, and I'm assuming the Fool, I hope so, and just get back into that beautiful world and that stunning prose that Robin Hobb writes. I'm very excited to get back into that. I'm sure it'll be really sad, but as they all seem to be.
Worth it, I suppose.
But I'm really excited to return to that world at some point next year.
Oh, this again. This is me, general girl. More cowboy romances. Who knew? Who knew I was gonna love a cowboy romance? I didn't. I've never been into Western style, Western movies. I used to watch cowboy movies with my grandpa when I was younger, and I thought they were so boring. But these cowboy romances were recommended. Another thing that has kind of taken the book talk world by storm, I believe. Highly recommended to me, and I'm really glad I started with Elsie Silver and the, oh gosh, what's the name of it? It's something Ranch. Chestnut Ranch? Chestnut Springs. There it is.
Great.
And she very much writes within the same world about different characters, so they're not connected, but they're connected.
Sure.
So if you know them, you'll get a little bit of behind the scenes, but each one focuses on a different character. And I was obsessed with them. So I want to continue on to this series, and then I know there's a few other, I think, probably similar vibes that I've seen recommended by people. So I'm definitely in my cowboy romance era, and I'm going to continue
to be
2025. In it. Yeah. Who knew? I'm accepting it. Finding a new part of me. I love it.
Fun.
They're so spicy. Phenomenal spice. Phenomenal slow burn. Great spice. At least the Elsie Silver ones I've read so far.
Okay, so for me, something a little bit different. I do like sci-fi. I just don't read it as much. I heard a rumor that I hope is true. Or maybe it's actually already been announced. I don't know. I haven't looked in a little bit.
You can tell us.
You let us know in the comments down below if it is. But I heard that the Red Rising series may potentially be ending this coming year in 2025. If that is the case, and I hope it is, I need to reread the whole series. One, because I haven't read them in a while, and two, because I'm, I think, now 2 books behind. I read the first book in the second series and started the second one and then kind of fell off of it. Was not my favorite. But I adore the original Red Rising trilogy. I was reading those books when no one knew what they were, right when they came out. Big fan. Wow. Red Rising, if you are not aware, is by Pierce Brown. It is a epic sci-fi no, not really sci-fi series that takes place somewhat largely on Mars after humanity has colonized large swaths of the solar system. There's a very intense hierarchy in society based on color and caste, and we follow Darrow, who is a character who is one of the Low Reds, which is the lowest member of the caste system, essentially slaves, and his rise. And it's awesome. I really love those books, and I hope that the series ends this year so I have an excuse to dive back into them.
Okay, next for me, another series I know nothing about, but a friend recommended to me, so I'm very intrigued, is the Belladonna series. The Belladonna series by Adeline Grace. Great. I've been told there's a character in it I will absolutely love. I trust my friends. I'm going to read it. I really like the cover art. So we're judging a book by its cover. That's all I know about it.
Cool.
I'm pumped. There's a character named Blythe.
I
love that name.
Blythe, really.
Blythe or Blythe? Would you say Blythe?
Blythe.
To Blythe.
To Blythe. Back to kind of older fantasy. I would love to read some Dragonlance. I've never read these books. I know that for some people it was like foundational to their childhood or early teen years. And I think that they came out primarily, well, at least they started coming out in like the 80s, I think. Kind of campy, very D&D inspired or inspiring D&D. I mean, Dragonlance was a setting for a while, still is. And so I heard that the first trilogy, maybe the second trilogy, definitely worth reading. So I kind of want to check them out. You know, I've read like the Dark Elf trilogy by R.A. Salvatore set in Forgotten Realms before, and that was kind of fun, campy stuff, light, not too serious. And so I'm interested to see what this is, and because I've never really read too much of that, of fantasy coming out in that time, of that specific genre of like high magic and very much like Dungeons and Dragons. And so I'm really excited to check it out. I think it'll be a kind of lighter, fun time, I hope. But I'll start with Dragons of Autumn Twilight hopefully sometime this year.
Great. There's going to be a new Emma Henry book coming out this year. I love Emma Henry. She writes lovely standalone romance books that actually don't make me too sad. And I say that because I don't love reading standalone novels because I get very connected to characters.
Sure.
And so then when they're gone, I feel like I can't handle it. But her newest book is called, that's a really cute name, Great Big Beautiful Life, coming out in April of 2025. I love that we're just kind of in this cycle of getting a new Emma Henry book every year. Thrilling, so excited. One day I would love to have physical copies of all of her books because I love her writing style. She does a beautiful job of creating complex characters and relationships in a 200-300 page romance novel. The characters in each one I still remember so vividly and have such connection to, and find that they have such connection as well. I think she's just a phenomenal romance writer, and definitely writes a sort of different style of romance than I've read. A little bit more, not intelligent. Intelligent is not the right word, but they definitely make you think. They really make you feel, and also give you a little bit of cute, spicy time too. Fun. I just think she's a phenomenal writer, and I cannot wait for the next one.
So another thing I was hoping to try and get into this year that I haven't read in a very long time is historical fiction. I haven't read that in a very, very long time. I loved it as a kid.
Me too.
And so I'm hoping to jump into something there. Right now, my eyes are on either Shogun or Pillars of the Earth, which is by Ken Follett. I'm forgetting the name of Shogun's author right now. But anyway, one of those two, I have not read historical fiction as an adult, I don't think. So I've heard that both of those books are phenomenal, and so I'm hoping to I believe that Shogun is about, just had the adaptation on FX.
Cool.
And it's about like feudal Japan, and Pillars of the Earth is apparently about the building of a cathedral, which sounds very boring, but I have been assured that it is riveting.
I'm kind of intrigued that someone would write a whole
and so I don't know,
that.
we'll see, but I am very interested in hopefully getting into one of those, though both of those books I think are pretty long, so we'll see.
We'll definitely see. Next one for me is a series that's been on my TBR for a really long time, the Magnolia Park series by Jessa Hastings. I've heard such mixed reviews about this, but I know, I've heard from people that it's kind of like UK Gossip Girl. It's very toxic, but people are obsessed with it. And so I'm very intrigued by the vibes. Again, I love the cover art that I've seen, especially the new ones, because I know they've had a whole makeover. Very intrigued. Very intrigued by the idea of a British set, sassy romance, potentially toxic environment. I don't know. I believe that they maybe focus on different this is how I do things. I don't know. I'm like, yeah, sure, someone says it'd be good.
That way.
Great.
I don't need to know everything about the book.
Very little about it, but this is another one I've seen all over my social media, and they're cute little short couple 100-pagers. They feel like a good, not palate cleanser, but something in between fantasy. Yeah, period. So I also recently have been very obsessed with watching TikTokers who live in the UK, either in a cottage or in a flat in London. So I feel like this is the vibe
sounds nice.
I want to give into my life right now.
Sure. So another one for me, this is, again, assuming the series ends this year. I think I heard that it's supposed to. And this is probably something I would read later in the year. Like maybe I'd just spend my October reading this, depending on when the last book comes out, assuming it does. Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I have not read a vampire book in a very, very long time.
Well, you're gonna.
Twilight kind of.
Vampires.
Oh, is it really? Okay, well, because Twilight kind of killed that genre for a while.
Rude.
For being honest. No, I mean, seriously, think about it. Like,
what do you mean?
Like, vampires as a set piece hasn't been big in the genre since Twilight. Like, it hasn't. They haven't been like a major player.
In books, I think it has.
I mean, I meant more mainstream media.
Especially you give me a romance book that's got of course. Vampires.
Anyway, I haven't read a vampire book in a very, very long time, and I don't know too much about this other than it is a vampire book, and I've heard good things. I've heard it's gory and sexy and a lot of fun. And so I am very intrigued to read it. I love vampire stuff. I really like the Castlevania shows on Netflix and things like that. Haven't read a book like that ever, or at least in a very long time. So hoping this kind of scratches that itch. And I hope I think it's a trilogy. I hope the series ends Okay. I hope the series ends this year so I can have an excuse to pick it up, because I keep meaning to and then don't, because I'm like, the series isn't over yet.
Yeah. Okay, my last one is another one that has been on my TBR forever. I believe the series is called the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. I've read the Caraval series. Caraval series? Caraval? Trilogy, at least. There might be more books in that. I'm not sure. I didn't super love it. I liked the world a lot. I thought the characters were decently interesting. It just wasn't my favorite writing ever. But this is a continuation of that same world. This one I've seen in more places than I recommended than I have the Caraval series. So I'm very intrigued by it. I know there's a character with pink hair. So love that. I find the kind of magical mysticism of this world very intriguing. In Caraval, it's literally about a traveling carnival situation. That's one of those things where is this real or is this not real? They tell you it's not real, but then it feels like it's very real. There's a lot of magic. There's the kind of godly beings are big time troublemakers based in kind of like a tarot card vibe. Very interesting. I know this one focuses on a character called Evangeline, who I know has pink hair. That's pretty much all I know about her. Pretty sure I know I got spoiled a lot of it, but that's okay. We're going to read it and it's going to be fun.
Great.
Period.
Great.
That's a great recommendation. All right. I think this is our last one.
And then on to 25. So this one is kind of more of an author than a particular series. I would like to read something by Naomi Novik. I never read anything by Naomi Novik, and I believe someone in the comments actually is the first person who recommended her to me or us. So thank you to whoever that person is. I'm not sure what series I want to read. There were two that I was looking at. One is called Scholomance, which is or I think that's how you said it. That's a young adult series. I think it's a trilogy, and it is like a magic school thing, which we could actually read together on the channel. So who knows? Maybe that'll be something we do.
Great.
Or there's another one called, I'm going to butcher this, Temeraire. I don't know. Anyway, and from what the description shows me, it is essentially the Napoleonic Wars if there were dragons. And that sounds pretty cool to me.
Done.
However, the series is 9 books long, so it is quite a commitment. Mm-hmm. So I may lean towards Scholomance, and now that I think about it, maybe that'd be a perfect thing for us to read together. So we may do that, but I would like to read something of hers before the end of the year as well.
Amazing.
But that is really everything. That's 25 books. We should keep a list. We should try and keep this list to see how many we actually read.
I guarantee I'm going to read half of them because I get
so because my TBR will get completely
I'm going to play library roulette and all the things. I would say, I guess this kind of goes along with the theme. 2025, I would really like to get myself into a reading schedule. Not I'm going to do this as much time this day, but to have a sit down of I will read for one single hour, because I get very distracted. Sure. And especially when I'm reading something like Wheel of Time, I feel really overwhelmed and intimidated by it. Mm-hmm. So then I just don't read it. But I think if I give myself this is the time that we read, that would be really, really great. Yeah. So that's part of my goal. I also see a lot of people do that on YouTube or TikTok. They'll do an hour-long reading vlog or something and kind of talk about it in between. Maybe we could do that. Robbie is not into it.
We could absolutely do that. I move a lot though.
That's kind of great though, because it's intriguing. Visuals.
Well, if that's something we want to do, if that's something you'd be interested in, just watching us read and randomly talk at you while we're reading, let us know in the comments down below. We'll do it. But otherwise, that's really everything. I'm sure we'll read a bunch more stuff, and hopefully we get to some of these books, because a lot of them sound very exciting. But what are you looking forward to reading in 2025? Let us know in the comments down below. Or if you have suggestions for us, we're always open to adding to the amorphous being and ever-changing being that is our TBR. That has no organization at all. But it's there, and it's on the list. But otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, and
we'll see you on our next adventure.